Also
Pine
Shillong
Mount,
Public School.
they are government schools. Why is it like big shots go to these schools but in paying just a meager amount as admission, while it's meant for the people from the backward classes?
That's why education is so complex. We have created this complex structure. The education budget, if you see, 3600 crores, and mostly goes into salaries. Like, we have too many schools and we have to rationalize. The second is the quality of teachers. Roughly 43% are without these qualifications currently. Getting a B.Ed degree has become a kind of a business model. Students found that no interest to continue because they couldn't see the value, because jobs are not there. Only Meghalaya has this system of selection test. I feel this is not correct. If we remove selection test completely from the state, so that means the pass percentage will first go down, because the reality is even worse than what is being shown.
Kublai palak sashi sen ni priang ngobai phi shakani ga one-on-one interview ga jongi but minta kan ting I done but ni ya u director jong school education but literacy but ubala bat rukum UDC jong ki kat tu kat ni tili district hapori lom garu ga jongi kata Swapnil Tembe banyak kan bangi halor ke jinglong jingman jong ke puli ke puthi ha ke jala ke jongi bakum joru halor ki bentai ba pher halor kumno ban pen kre yela de ban yele ki exams ki ba pher ha ke ni ke jongi. So thank you so much, sir, for agreeing to do this with us, and we welcome you to our show. So we know that everybody's talking about education in our state, and apparently Meghalaya, Shillong to be particular, used to be called a hub of education in the Northeast, but slowly and gradually we've seemed to have lost that tag. So why do you think education is in this situation, in this condition right now?
Well, it's a long story. Earlier, of course, Shillong being the capital of the undivided Assam, so it was a lot of legacy systems were there. I think with a lot of things in Guwahati, things have moved a bit there. But when it comes to Meghalaya, we have to understand the complex system which has been there now in terms of schooling. So as I'm director for school education, so I'll talk more about that. So now Meghalaya has the distinction of having various categories of schools. So when we say school, so when I say government school, so government school means purely government. So let's in primary we have 2000 roughly government schools are there. Then these are and UP, and then secondary and higher secondary. Then we have something called aided schools. Though it's not very unique, every state may have, but we have a significantly higher number of aided schools. So here we have roughly around 4000 aided schools in our state. Meghalaya is like spread out. We have 7000 villages, which are spread out. So that is a challenge. So we have 15,000 schools, and Manipur has 1/3 the number of schools. So just a comparison, we have very high number of schools, and there is a need for rationalization. So what happens is that in a village, I will take an example, there are many villages like this. There is a government LP school, but there is also a SSA LP school in the same village, sometimes next to it, sometimes in very near to it. Then there will be a aided school which the government is supporting in terms of aid. So when I say aid, there are again so many different types. Like to understand this, it takes a while. That's why education is so complex. We have deficit pattern, we have ad hoc grant, we have science grant, Hindi grant, so many, morning, evening, the list is endless, right? So we have created this complex structure. Our villages are very small as compared to other states. So we have 60-70 households in a village, and there are 4 schools. So the enrollment is also divided. So one school has 10-20 enrollment. So the resources are divided. There's so many teachers. There's so many. So one good thing is that we have 55,000 teachers in our system. That's just amazing. When we do the pupil teacher ratio, Meghalaya has one of the best, because we have so many teachers. But actually in the ground, if you see, they are divided into schools. So why I am telling you all this story, we have to understand the background of how we have spread the resources so thin that that optimal utilization is not happening. When I talk about our budget, the education budget, if you see, 3600 crores, and mostly goes into salaries. But so what is happening is that this is divided. there is government, there is aided, there is so many other different complexities are there. That is why there is a need to rationalize our system. So that is the first thing why maybe over the years, it has come down. So one reason is that like we have too many schools and we have to rationalize. The second is the quality of teachers, because what has happened in the past, now for so many years, teachers have been recruited perhaps without ensuring these qualifications. So as per our record, roughly 43% are without these qualifications currently. So that is why this NCT and all, they have prescribed certain these kind of courses, and now we need to take action, because these are full-time courses. In fact, this B.Ed, getting a B.Ed degree has become a kind of a business model. So some of the colleges, they don't have the affiliation from the right competent authority, and they are like almost like selling these B.Eds. So we need to come up with some other model, and we are doing that. In Meghalaya, we have something called DERT, which is looking after the teacher training. And they basically, we are planning to introduce some kind of a course. Now, as I said, there are 43% of our teachers are untrained. That's roughly 20,000 teachers. So maybe can we come up with a bridge course, 1 month course, which we can tell them, and at least by that, we will make sure that they have the needed skill set to be a teacher. Then the next is infrastructure. If you look at the rural schools, you will realize, but a lot has been done in the last couple of years. The government has launched this mission education, under which 2,000 government schools are being renovated. Mostly phase 1 has been completed also. So a lot is happening, but again this question comes, because we have so many schools, the expenditure will also be more.
So talking about many schools, has there been any effort from the government to actually merge these schools? Because we have, like you mentioned, 4 schools in one village that has only 90 households. So has there been any effort to merge together so that the teachers-student ratio might be maintained?
Right. So there is a project called consolidation of schools, and the pilot is being done in East Garo Hills. The idea is, because you have to take all the stakeholders on board. Because what happens is that closing of school somehow is interpreted as the end of development in that particular region. So and when we say we will close down a school, then there is sudden opposition is there, and then people feel this is bad. So people need to be told, and since there are a lot of stakeholders, and in our state, you are well aware that community plays a big role, right? So and there has to be a political will also to do that. So people, because when I tell you just I'll close this school, you will feel that something bad is happening. But we have to understand that this is not bad. If there are other schools, we can pool in resources. So this is actually a very good thing, and it is something which is a must now. We have to do it to ensure optimal. So what is happening in East Garo Hills is that the DC, Deputy Commissioner, is also spearheading this. They are calling the communities, they are explaining it to them that in this region, we have found out, as per our record, there are excess number of schools, and we need to rationalize. So that process has started, and we will see how that results are. And in fact, we are ready at the state level also. We have all the data in UDICE and TIMS and all. So we know what are these excess schools, and what schools have to be temporarily maybe closed or tagged to some other school. So we have all that ready. So once this pilot is done in East Garo Hills, we will present to the government maybe a plan for the entire state. And things are rolling, and hopefully in the coming times we'll rationalize.
So talking about government schools, I think there is this mindset of the people is that government schools, the infrastructure, the quality is not that good. Because if you look at government schools, forget about rural areas, just talk about Shillong itself. There are many LP and UP schools in different localities of Shillong, but you rarely see students from well-off families to go to the schools, unlike Pine Mount, which is very ironic, let me tell you.
Also Pine Shillong Mount, public school.
Exactly. They are government schools, and the people who go there are not, students from backward classes. So there's this question in the mind of the people almost every time. Why is it like big shots go to these schools, but in paying just a meager amount as admission, while it's meant for the people from the backward classes? So my question is that Why can't the government make schools like Shillong Public School or Pine Mount School to raise the quality of education in these other schools, in different localities of the state, so that these students, even from well-off family, to go to these schools and not to look at these schools as backward schools and all that.
No, first of all, I want to clear that this is not like for a particular class, right? I mean, these are government schools and these are open for everyone to join. In fact, Shillong Public School also had very low enrollment. But if you know, with the present principal, has for the last so many, I think he has been there for quite some time, almost for the last 10 years. And by taking various initiatives, he has increased, from 100 to 100, now the enrollment is around 1,000 in Shillong Public School. So that shows that like leadership also matters. Now coming to the point that yes, these are kind of, these are public schools. We have only 4. One is Pine Mount, we have the Shillong Public School, Jovai Public School and the Tura Public School. So these are only 4. As I said, the numbers. Now if you say the government LP school, there are 2,500 government schools. So you see the numbers which are there. Now these are remotely located, right? So it's very difficult to get the teachers also sometimes. Of course, I mean, we do recruitment, but most of the teachers maybe are from Shillong, maybe are from Tura. So they do up down, some days they are not able to go also. So that all factors also matter. But the, enrollment in the school, as I said, I mean, in a village we have a small villages and the enrollment is very less. So when the enrollment is less, then the whole economics of scale doesn't work. If you see in what is there in our case in Meghalaya, we have LP school somewhere, then you'll have UP school 6 to 8 somewhere else, then we'll have secondary school somewhere else, 9, 10, and then higher secondary somewhere else. So the 4 different schools. In fact, this should be like kind of a single unit. So an average student in Meghalaya may have to change schools on an average 4 times during his school this thing. So that is leading to dropout and all that. So if we want good schools, as you're saying, why our schools, so that's what. So now the move is, and NEP has recommended that we should move towards school complexes rather than having this small unit. But at the same time, there is a constraint of remoteness. Like in every village, you cannot have a secondary school, but there are no students. So it is not economically viable also, right? So we have to look at those aspects. Maybe at the block level, cluster level, we can have these government secondary schools, and then the LP schools from villages can feed into that. So that is going forward, that will be the approach.
Then if we talk about teachers, government teachers in these government schools, UP and LP, there have been allegations that most of them, they're proxy teachers. These teachers were employed and not going to those schools, maybe because of different reasons. One is the distance, and in their place they hire someone else. Has the government received any such complaints, and if yes, what actions have been taken?
Yes, I remember the moment I joined in April last year. So this was one of the major issues, especially in rural remote areas, because there is no monitoring. So immediately we had issued an order that if any such case is there, disciplinary cases will be taken up against all the teachers. We had received some complaints also. So, I mean, of course you can do case by case basis, things are going on. But on a major level, what we have done is that we have introduced this TIMS app, which is the Teacher Information Management System. And teacher every day has to give the attendance, and it has geofencing ability that you have to be in the school. You cannot give it from anywhere else because it GPS, works on GPS. So now when we started, of course the response was, less, 30% we used to get. But as of yesterday, I was just checking the report. Now we are receiving around 80% reports from all the schools. So at least we have come some distance, and we will make this 100%. And it will not just depending on the app. We are telling our sub-inspectors, we are telling our DSCOs, SDSCOs to randomly check. We have activated that. We have made another app for our officials. Whenever they are going for an inspection, they can, they can just put in the details there, which is called the school management app. So a lot of things, these things have, I think, increased the attendance in the school. But still, there are some villages very far, which is very difficult to track. Maybe they are not even reporting. So we look forward in the next year to make this 100%. So we have taken some steps. Obviously, still there are some this thing, and we have received some reports, and action will be taken against those teachers.
Okay, so when you were the DC of East Garo Hills, you had introduced one of the projects like STAR, um, that is School Transformation Augmenting Resources, and through this you wanted to spread awareness to to increase the literacy in that area, at the same time to reduce the rate of dropouts in that particular district. So has that initiative been expanded to other districts of the state?
Well, I started that in East Garo Hills, and then when I was DC Tura, I did it in West also. Here we are contemplating different formats of it. So the idea was, when I was in the district. So in a district, resources are very, less. If you want to do anything, I remember when I first joined in Meghalaya 2017 as the SDO Dadengre. It was a very remote subdivision. No, nothing was there. All shops used to close by 3 p.m. There were hardly any shops there, one or two shops. So nothing was there. So I came across a school which was in a very bad shape, and I wanted to renovate it. So I figured out like what I was looking, what are the schemes, what are the funds, but at the subdivision level, there's hardly anything, and there's hardly any industry. Nothing is there. So I was so desperate to do something that I just, okay, I got my salary. I just used my salary to do it. The 2 months of that. That was the first, because I had no idea how to, use government resources and all. So, and in same as district also, the resources are very less. Of course, when we at state level now, so there are schemes. We can in fact create new schemes to address the problems. We can bring changes in the policy. There are a lot of stakeholders. When we do at a stake level, there are resources. Now here we have to ensure optimal utilization of resources. So the approach at the state level and district level is different. But anyhow, the idea of Project STAR was that telling everyone education is important, and we all have to play a role, because government will have a limited budget every year. It can only do this much, but our schools are this many, right? So everyone has to play a role.
So aside from the fact that improvement of education is very important, when we talk about why students, especially in the rural areas, they don't complete their education till class 10, there are different factors to it. Maybe one is because of the financial difficulties that they face in their lives, and number two is because their parents are not educated enough to feel that with education they can grow in life. Are these different factors, intricate factors in our societies, being looked at while you come up with different projects and models to improve education in the state?
Yeah, so you're talking about dropouts basically. Meghalaya has the highest dropout rate at secondary. So we did a survey to understand, of course there are like some common reasons, but to understand better we did a survey. So the first reason is obviously access. Access, when I say access, it means the schools are not there at the secondary level. So when you look at the data, we have only 1,000 secondary schools. So out of 14,600 schools that we have in Meghalaya, 9,000 are elementary, 9,000 plus are elementary schools. Secondary are only 1,000, and higher secondary only 400 something schools are there, imagine. So the first problem, that school is not there. Even if maybe I'm from a village, but the nearest higher secondary school is maybe at the district or at the block. So how do I go? Because one of the thing is that public transport is also not there in most of the places, right? So one problem is access. The second is obviously financial, the capacities, because when we say RTE, right to education, is only till class 8th. Class 1 to 8, free education, government schools are providing. But of course, when you go beyond that, there is expenditure. You have to travel to the school, that is another expenditure. The books, maybe the studies, some extra, this thing. No? So a lot of expenditure is involved. So people just give up because they see, okay, we don't have the financial capacity. One reason, as you said, is that in rural areas, maybe the parents have, illiterate, and they have never been to school, or they have never completed their formal schooling. That is another one. But third reason is very interesting. As per the survey we did, was that students found that no interest to continue, because they couldn't see the value. What is the value of going, making such an effort, then going to college, because jobs are not there. The learning is not fun maybe. So this is very interesting reason. So this is something which can be altered or changed, with less effort also, because this is talking about curriculum. They didn't find it interesting, they didn't find it relevant to maybe what they are learning. So these are the reasons. So for bringing in schools, what the government is now taking up is that planning to upgrade various schools. If there is a secondary school, it should be upgraded to higher secondary also. So basically we are moving towards, as I said before, the idea of school complex, that the same school should provide all the grades, so that the children do not have to move from one school to another. So this is happening. Then Ekalavya model residential schools, the EMRS schools are coming. The state has received sanction for 38, and they will be a game changer, I feel, because they will be in all the blocks, right? And they'll be residential, class 6 to 12th, catering to 500 students. So that's I think residential models are the best for our state, because as I said, in every village you cannot provide a higher secondary. So maybe at the block level, at the cluster level, we can have these residential schools where the children can come and stay, so this everyday coming and going will not be required, and also that is another model. Then we have signed MOU with NIOS, which is the National Institute of Open Schooling. So now those who are outside the system, those dropouts, it's not very practical to bring them all back, because maybe they already started working. So one solution, of course, the preferred route is that they come back and complete their schooling. But the other way is that they enroll for NIOS, and they can get class 10th exam certificate, class 12th exam certificate, because NIOS you don't have to go to school. They give you study material. If you require classes, they organize classes for you. If you don't require, you can study on your own, give your exam, get your certificate. So these are a couple of things we are doing to address the dropout.
Okay, so earlier you mentioned about making learning interesting for the students, and I believe with technology, many things have been introduced even in the school. So out of this 3600 crore sanction for the education department, how much money is allocated for for that particular reason, to ensure that every school is has let's say smart TV or something, that to make learning fun for the children, especially in the secondary level?
Well, that is the challenge, because as I said, like most of the allotment which is there, that is for the salaries. So maybe out of 3600 crores, roughly 2500 crores will be salaries and wages only, and GIA, because the government is giving to 4,000 schools, as I said, right? So grant in aid is being given. So most of this budget is going into that. Of course, there's some into capital infrastructure, like 200, 300 crores will come into that. From Samagra, we'll get another maybe 100, 200 crores for these interventions. So you can say around 300-400 crores for these kind of interventions are there. But essentially, you can say 90% is going into salary, teacher's salary. So we need to rationalize that. And if we reduce perhaps the number of school to the optimal number, so we'll save from here, and we can spend more on infrastructure. We can spend more on smart classes. We can spend more on so many other things. Taking the students on an excursion visit to IIT Guwahati, doing all these kind of things, which we should be doing, and not just paying salaries. Because in spite of, so we say 8% of our state GDP is going into education, but still, I mean, we want more of the chunk to go into interventions to improve the quality.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. Since we're talking about SSA, and you're also the project director, if I'm not mistaken, of SSA. So we know that recently the teachers, like 2 groups of SSA teachers, have come out to the street to demand for different salaries and regularization. Do you think it'll be too much of a burden on the government to actually regularize these teachers, number one, and number two, to ensure that they get that you can hike their salary? Because like you mentioned, the SSA budget that comes is very limited.
So for this we need to understand the background of this whole thing. So why the SSA school started, basically when RTE was being implemented, and then it was felt that, as I said, our villages are spread out, so it kind of pushed the state to create more number of schools, and at that point these SSA schools were created. Now SSA, you have to understand, is a centrally sponsored scheme, and Meghalaya has a special category where it's this 90-10, so 90% of the funds come from the central government, 10% state government gives. So now what happened in the other states when we created 5,000 new schools. In other states, most of the other states, they use this fund, they created post of these teachers in the existing schools. They didn't create new schools. So that is one difference we need to understand, why we have these additional schools. So now, having said that, it is in sometimes it's required also, because in that particular village or group of villages there is no school, so it was like necessary to create that infrastructure. As I said, we would want to spend more on interventions. So same Government of India is also saying, we will reduce what we are giving you for the salaries, we'll give you more for interventions. So they are reducing that every year by 5%, right? So earlier 90-10, so that is coming down every year by 5%. So we don't know till which level they will go, but they are reducing so that they can give us more. They want to give us more funds, but on quality interventions, not just for the salaries. So that is their take. Majority are UP, SSA UP schools. Government UP are very less. So they are playing a major role. And eventually, it is not that they are not required. They are required to maintain that RT norms and all that. So now it is up to us. Many states have done it. This process of regularization and different sort of models are there. So currently the department is studying all those models, and soon, one approach will be finalized, that how do we bring them to the system, or how do we rationalize it. First of all, we need to rationalize also at the same time. So all that exercise is going on. And I am constantly in touch with both the associations, and we will come up with a solution in the coming times.
Now these SSA teachers, do they have the required qualifications?
It's the same as I said, 43% of our teachers are not having that
okay, they come under that.
So it's when I say that, it covers all, actually, a different kind of this thing. DLED, I think most of them have DLED. I think MTET was introduced later on. By the time they were in the system, so they were already in system. So all those decisions, are being considered, and by the department will soon, examine further representations and will come up with a solution.
So I would also want to ask you this question. In Garo Hills, especially, when you look at the embossed result, class 10 results, you see most of the poor performance, like 0% pass percentage, are from schools from Garo Hills. And the government had from time to time stated that they are going to review the performance of these schools, and if the need be, they'll shut down these schools. Have any schools been shut down because of the poor performance? Even after reviewing, there's no activity in that school.
Are you talking about government schools only, or in general?
In general, sir.
Okay. So, yes, we are regularly reviewing that, and in fact, one special scheme has been launched to, look into the, based on the observations, the CM impact, scheme which is there. Now, pass percentage, we have to see there are many reasons, which are very deep. You cannot just do some intervention in the class 9-10 level and suddenly expect the results, because it's all, when you look at this house or any house, what is the most important thing? The foundation, which is not visible, but it's still the most important thing. So when it comes to education, what they have done in the elementary level will eventually determine how they perform. So we have to start addressing that. The one of the reasons which we also discussed in this podcast was teacher absenteeism, right? So in LP schools, very remote areas, like rural remote, there was no monitoring maybe in a past. So even how many school days we were having, it's very as RTE, if you read that, it mandates that every elementary school, they should have these many hours every year minimum, right? And we have mentioned this when we released the school calendar also last year, and UP also, but this was not happening. Of course, there are other reasons, like we have natural hazards, sometimes floods, so much of rainfall is there and all that, but one of the primary reasons where teachers were not going also. So now with the teacher app and with more monitoring, at least now we see teachers are there. Now whether they are able to teach, because many of them are not qualified also, so again that factor also. So we have to really go back to the drawing board. We have to start with our LP school, which is the foundation. Then by the time they come there, of course we can do some teacher training. We are doing now under the CM Impact. We have created guidebooks. We have created training for teachers is going on. We have made WhatsApp group of all teachers, constantly giving them some kind of a study material. There's so many things are going on. One of the things I want to share here on this platform, only Meghalaya has this system of selection test, where if they pass selection test, they will be allowed to appear. So this is I feel this is not correct. So that is why that advisory was issued, and hopefully in the future we'll do away with this completely, with the selection test also. Many schools have done away with. So the idea is, which every other state, and when I was in class 10th, we also had pre-boards. In fact, we had 3 pre-boards before the board exam. So pre-board, the idea is you assess, and if there is a shortcoming, you tell the student, you take extra class, you help the student, so that that can be bridged. And that eventually, because you should not stop any. If I as a student, I want to give the board exam anyway, so I should be allowed to do that. If we remove selection test completely from the state, so that means the pass percentage will first go down, because the reality is even worse than what is being shown. So I think, why are we not ready to accept the reality? I mean, to address the problem, first you have to accept it, not be in denial. And increasing the pass percentage is something which needs a long-term plan, where we start investing in our LP schools, and then maybe UP schools, and then all these interventions and all is okay. So that maybe 5 years from now we can have some better, and eventually pass percentage should not be your KPI where you are measuring, because are they learning? Because I see, even if they pass, they are not having the skills. So the actual measure should be their skills, and whether they are learning, whether they are having fun, whether they are enjoying school, whether they are getting life skills. So these other factors should be more important than pass percentage, because simply passing is doesn't give you the exact picture.
So if there's one thing you want to change about the education system in our state, what would it be and why?
I think there are many things, but one thing, if you're asking, is that I think it should be what we are teaching to the children, because eventually if we come through this education system and we read so many things, for example, we read Pythagoras theorem, but when do we actually use it, right? We read so much of this chemistry, formulas and all, but when do we use it? But from the education coming out, they're still lacking the skills. I mean, one simple example is that they don't know how to manage finances, they don't know how to fill taxes, they don't know how to cook, they don't know how to drive. These are basic life skills, I think. So through our education and about fundamental duties, about environment, the awareness about all the acts, the schemes, I feel these are more important. So of course we are working on that, and maybe for that basically the curriculum has to change. So we have introduced some things, for example, bagless days. So we have introduced 10 bagless days, and we have given themes also. So these things should be the focus while running. So one thing I would want to change is this: we need to start with what our students are learning in school. We need to change that.
Thank you, sir. Di parlo kat tungi la poisha bakut jong kani ka interview jongi tak ada bingi syam ya pi hakawai pat kapor ngadi pan kintiu mauri nak bentau forefront media ku blai kapor jong pi baro.